Thank you all so much for being here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Morea Dickinson. For those of you that don't know me, I am the Executive Director at One Circle Foundation. I have been in this role for just over 2 years, but I have been working at One Circle for the last 17. And my introduction to our programs was as a teenager. I was a struggling kid, told that I had to be in a girls' circle, and it drastically changed my life. So I am so grateful to share space with you and for the work that you do to support youth. And to the directors and managers in the room, thank you for all that you do to support youth service providers so that they have what they need to do this work. And special shout out to any administrators that are here. Happy National Administrative Professionals Day. So I know your time's really valuable. I will be quick in my little intro. I just want to kick us off by saying that we called this session because we really believe that what we're sharing about here is genuinely needed. Youth mental health is in crisis. We know this not just from the data that's been emerging over the last few years, but also because we've been hearing it from you, our community. And at One Circle Foundation, we have spent nearly 3 decades developing evidence and research-based circle program models for youth with accredited training and easy to use curricula so that youth service providers can effectively facilitate these programs. So this new activity guide, Calm and Connected, it's our most focused response yet to the mental health crisis. I am so proud of what our team has created. Many hands have touched this work during its development, including youth and facilitators in the field. While the need for this tool was incredibly clear to us as an organization over the last few years, our brilliant Director of Curricula, Shayla Benson, came up with the framework for Calm and Connected and then authored this curriculum. Her expertise and deep, deep care for youth is on every page of this guide. So I'm going to hand it over to her to walk you through what Calm and Connected is, how it works, why we believe it belongs in the hands of everyone working with youth today. And in the meantime, please feel free to use the chat, share any questions that come up during Shayla's presentation. And we look forward to hearing from you, answering your questions, and being in conversation once she is done. And if you do need to leave early or we can't get to every question, please put your question in the chat with your email address and we will get back to you afterward. We also are recording this. We will share either snippets or the whole thing later. We will get something to you later as well if you had registered for the event. So thank you again. And Shayla, take it away.
Oh, hi, everyone. Again, my name is Shayla Benson. Pronouns are she and her. I am Director of Curricula at One Circle Foundation. I've been with the organization for a little over 2 years now. And yeah, like we've come full circle with Calm and Connected. This was definitely a passion project. Part of my responsibility as Director of Curricula is to create new activity guides that we add to our existing library of guides that support our Girls Circle, the Council for Boys and Young Men, and Unity Circle. So yeah, let's get into it. This was a year in the making. We released it March 24th. Super excited that, we've been able to come thus far to having this guide be available to everyone. So if you would just give me a few moments of your time, I can do an overview of the guide. So Maria, if you can upload the slide. There we go. Okay. So let's talk about the why. What led to us writing this guide. So as Maria mentioned, like youth mental health is definitely in a crisis right now, and is often ignored. If you have not heard that from your youth, ask them that question. Ask them, what do you think youth mental health is? If it's an issue that's affecting you and your peers, and you'll hear some very, interesting responses. What we do know is that, they definitely need adults that are closest to them to just help guide them, help explain what it is, validate, what it is that they're going through. What we know is that, 20% of our high school students have seriously considered attempting suicide. 40% of teens report persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. When I was in the process of like brainstorming what to do for this guide, I actually did a brainstorming session with a group of youth that is local to me. I am from Buffalo, New York, in New York State, so Western New York, born and raised. And one of my youth groups that I still have a great relationship with told me that anxiety and depression were at the top of the list in terms of like mental health challenges that they deal with every day, and that um, they don't know how to ask for help, and they don't know what tools to use to, help foster, those coping skills in the event they can't find that trusted adult to divulge those concerns to. So that really got me thinking, like, I need to put something together that we need to add to our circle library. So that was pretty much the big overarching why. So next slide, please. So we have Calm and Connected, a guide to personalized grounding and mental health. So a lot of our guides either consist of 8, 10, or 12 sessions. This particular guide is 12 sessions, and it is, again, part of our Unity Circle set, which I'm very proud of to continue to add to the Unity Circle set. It is for ages 11 through 18. It is for all genders, so you can either use this guide in a mixed gendered group. You can use it in your already existing girls circle or your council for boys and young men. Currently, right now, we have a hard copy guide, which is $168, and we will be producing a digital guide as well. So that was something that we confirmed not too long ago. So we are in the process of making that digital flip book available to folks. And I know that that was a question that had came up in someone's registration. So next slide, please. So this is how Calm and Connected is structured. So I mentioned that there's 12 sessions, right? So not to make assumptions for any facilitator that is using this guide. I wanted to, create some things. I kind of wanted to tell a story in a way. So kind of having, how we were taught there's like an introduction when you're writing a paper, and then there's the body, and then you have your conclusion at the end. Well, that's kind of like my thought process as I was developing this guide. So the first 2 sessions of Calm and Connected, we're building safety. We're building in those group agreements for those that are familiar with our circle model. Circle agreements is always that first activity in session one, because we want to build that group cohesion. We want, our youth to have ownership of what it is that they're going to be entering into. And for something that's as sensitive as youth mental health, it's definitely important. So we're definitely building the foundation in the first 2 sessions. We're introducing the youth to the concept of youth mental health, because not all of them do. They probably have an idea, but never really put words to it. But, session one will definitely introduce them to what youth mental health is. Session two gets into what does it mean to know what your strengths are, and what I like to refer to as your personal capacities. So, and the next slide will get into that a little bit more, but we explore what capacities are and how we're going to use them in the rest of the guide, which is actually the bulk of what the guide consists of. So sessions 3 through 10, we're exploring all those different capacities. So I've built in experiential, hands-on, youth-centered activities that really explore all 8, and there's 8 total capacities that will help support their emotional well-being. And then once we get to sessions 11 and 12, we're pretty much synthesizing everything that was learned in sessions 1 through 10. So basically, we're taking all of the concepts, we're taking all the activities, all the discussions, all the debriefing, and we're putting it all together so that we can tell them, like, okay, this wasn't just a circle experience. You can use these things even after the circle is done. So in a sense, you're walking away with your own personal mental health toolkit. So we're not fibbing when we said, hey, you're going to come in and learn some stuff about yourself, but you're actually going to be able to use this and integrate it in your everyday life if that's something that you choose to do. And I also wanted to make the point that by introducing capacities, that mental health is not a one size fits all. And I know sometimes we like to group and box youth a lot of the time, and we can't really do that anymore. We really have to pay attention to everyone's strengths. It's not about looking at deficits or what someone doesn't have. It's about building on what they already have, like taking what is there and building upon that. So, and that's what Calm and Connected seeks to do. Next slide, please. So I mentioned those 8 core capacities. So for anyone that may look at these and they're like, you know what, this looks a little bit familiar. I'm actually deriving these capacities from Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, which is a very popular educational theory that is used by educators, consultants, researchers, professionals, you name it. So each session, like I said, sessions 3 through 10, centers one of these capacities. So you have your linguistic verbal, you have your logical mathematical. So if you have someone that's very logical and needs things in a very structured way, that's your person. Going back to linguistic verbal, if you have that person that really needs to hear things and verbalize them in such a way, you have that person with that type of strength. If you have a person that is constantly doing tunes in their head, singing, my partner is that type of person. He always associates things with a song. Our ED, Maria, she is the musician extraordinaire. You have your musical folks, and you want to tie into those strengths. If you have that youth that is always moving and never wants to be still, and associates learning with I need to move, I need to be doing something besides sitting still, that's your bodily kinesthetic individual. Your visual spatials, definitely need colors, they need shapes, they need something that helps them by seeing, using their sense of sight and making sense of that to understand things. You have your individual that comes from within. They learn by tuning in with themselves and checking in with themselves. That's your intrapersonal versus your interpersonal person. So if you have that person that always wants to interact with folks, they need to be that social butterfly. That's your person right there. And then you oftentimes have your individual, your youth that is in tune with nature, something about being outdoors, being with the seasons, anything, being with a stream of water, stones, the birds in the trees, whatever. That is your naturalistic person. So again, I specifically made sure when I was writing these sessions that it tuned into every single one of these capacities. And I want to also make it very clear for any current facilitator or individual that's thinking of being a facilitator that no background, mental health background is needed. Although if you are a mental health professional, kudos, absolutely. Like that's a bonus, but you do not need to have an MSW or any of the letters of the alphabet after your name in order to facilitate this guide. We do recommend attending one of our trainings just so that you can get the foundational background and structure by how we run our circles through One Circle Foundation. It's not required, but we do, advocate for that so that you are at your most prepared and ready to run your circle group. Next slide, please. Okay, so what makes this different? So I've mentioned a few things. So this guide is definitely strengths-based. So like I said, it's not about fixing what's wrong. It's about helping the youth discover what their capacities are. So we're centering the youth, okay? Yes, the facilitator is there, but they are there as guidance. They are there to keep things centered. But at the end of the day, like these activities center the youth, okay? We're looking at their identities. We're looking at how these different strategies, can help the youth learn and connect not only with themselves, but one another. Because again, we don't want to forget this is a circle. All right. So there is going to be some interaction with their peers within that circle. This guide is definitely research informed. I wouldn't do what I do if I didn't do the research. And I think, everyone that has had a hand in helping with writing this guide, it is definitely important to make sure that our information is research informed, it's accessible, it's grounded in evidence, and can be used by anyone pretty much. Again, it's circles based, so we're definitely bringing it back to creating a community, a circle that instills belonging, it instills trust, We want our youth to be vulnerable and honest if they should choose to, because I believe in consent first. But again, we want to establish that foundation at the very beginning so that our kids will want to come back and finish this circle so that they end up with that mental health toolkit that I mentioned. And then we're also, definitely instilling those protective factors. So with the hopes of building stronger connections, self-understanding, and again, those coping skills that hopefully can reduce risk over time. Okay. And this has been tested. So, again, in the development stage of this guide, we did do some pilot testing of the guide. So we had, I believe, 4 or 5 groups that had already established circles that were able to test our guides and or test the sessions, and they were able to provide me feedback. That was actually really great and allowed me to go back and make some necessary revisions into the guide that we actually have for you all. So I was very appreciative, and it's actually something that I will continue to do as I develop curricula during my time at One Circle Foundation. We will definitely always pilot test because we want to bring the youth and the facilitators to the table to provide that feedback. Next slide, please. So included in every session, for those that don't know, again, this is a Unity Circle guide. So we have a 7-step model that includes an opening ritual. So there's always an opening ritual to the group. There's always a warm-up activity. We always introduce what the theme is going to be for that particular session. There is always going to be a check-in. And one special thing that I did with the check-in for this particular guide is that I've included an emoji chart. So there is a resource for younger youth and for older youth to use an emoji chart where the youth indicate like, hey, this is how I'm feeling today. And it could be a range of emotions. We have to look at it in terms of a spectrum. You might have youth that are like, look, I don't want to be here today right now. And that's okay. And hopefully, maybe they'll be able to warm up to whatever is in store for that day's session. But we want to respect those feelings. And then you may have someone that's like, look, Miss Shayla, I am ready. Let's get it popping. What we doing today? And that's perfectly fine as well. I made sure to include experiential activities. Yes, there will always be some sort of discussion, which actually is the next step. But again, with the hands-on activities, I try to make things as experiential as possible so that the youth um, feel that they have a sense of ownership in the things that they're doing, and that hopefully they feel compelled to share in the next step, which is the group debrief, or what we would like to call the activity sharing portion of the session. And there's always an application question, which will ask them like, hey, what do you think that you will do to take care of yourself in the next week, in the coming week or so? Okay, so giving them something to think about, planting those seeds, and then closing out with a closing ritual. So that's our 7-step model that is in every session. There are research citations throughout. The majority are within sessions 1 through 10 because 11 and 12, again, just synthesizes everything and brings it all together. And we made sure to include various safety checks and adaptations, excuse me, because this is a very sensitive subject. My background is in sexual health. So that alone, I tell people all the time, very sensitive subject. Not everybody is open to it. You kind of have to bring people in a little bit. Same is true with mental health. But we definitely want to let folks know, especially our youth, know that your mental health is just as important as everything else. So we wanted to put those safety checks in there, especially for those with different youth, different populations that they work with. You have the flexibility to make those adaptations. We just ask that you still stick to that 7-step model that we have. And we did also include, I believe, if Maria hasn't shared it already in the chat, we're going to share a link to our sample session, and it's actually session 7 from the guide for those that are still curious and interested to know, like, what does a session look like? She said all these things. What does it look like? Well, I gave you a link or a session. You're welcome. So it's session 7. And it actually is the visual spatial capacity that is covered in session 7. And you'll be able to peruse that and see what's throughout that session. Okay, next slide. Okay. And that's calm and connected, folks.
Nice. Thank you
I feel like
so
Porky Pig at the
much.
end of without all the stuttering saying that's the folks.
I'm gonna just
But yes,
unshare
yes.
my screen so we can see each other since I know we're moving into the Q&A portion of our time. And I'm glad there's so much time left for that. Shayla, beautiful job. Thank you the most. We've got one question in the chat already for you, which is perfect to kick off, and then we can open it up for folks to ask questions. Shannon Murray asked, she said, I didn't see an emoji chart included in the guide. Should there have been?
So there should be not a chart that you can actually use. There should be a link to a chart that you would print. So for the emoji chart, what I wanted to do was leave it up to facilitators to decide how you want to present this emoji chart. So I wanted to be respectful of folks and folks' budgets, because being a former senior manager of education, budgets are important. So if you're able to print it, like go to your local print shop, or if you have the type of printer that will allow you to enlarge the emoji chart from the website that I include in the guide, and hopefully laminate it. That, and I put that in there as a recommendation if you're able to laminate that emoji guide or emoji chart, because this is a chart that you'll be using at your check-ins every single session, then do that. If you can't, then do whatever, works for you and your group. So yeah, I did. So yes, to answer that question, it's not actually in the guide, it's through a link. So excuse me. I hope that answered the question.
You got an okay, thanks in the chat. Yeah. Yeah, so we can open it up. If folks have other questions, you're welcome to chat it. You're also welcome to unmute yourself and just join the conversation. What questions are showing up for you all? Or do you just have everything you need and you're ready to roll? Oh, Nancy asked a question. Nancy. She wrote, is there a moment or exercise in the guide that consistently resonates or opens something up for participants? Can you walk us through that?
Can you say that question one more time? I want to make sure I'm answering it correctly.
I sure can. And if you are a visual learner, this chat, you can get right in there too. Is there a moment or exercise or activity in the guide that consistently resonated or opened something up for participants? I'm guessing Nancy means in the testing phase. Can you walk us through that?
Actually, yes. Um, and me being me, I brought my guide. So there was one session. So when we did do the testing, um, there were quite a few groups that did the same session. And in session one, in particular, there is an activity called mental health as a battery metaphor. Now, when I originally wrote this activity, actually, let me just say this just to give folks context, because I can be a little silly, but it helps me produce things and create. So when I was putting this guide together, I was like, okay, I want to create a best hits, like a best hits album. So I'm just going to all my sessions are going to be songs, activities are going to be songs, and I'm just going to pick the best of the best and put it in there. I also have a bad habit of wanting to put everything in. So I kind of go against my own original advice. So when I was doing this activity, it actually had two different options. I had a battery metaphor, but then I also had a garden metaphor. That draft, that activity I sent to the groups to pilot, and overwhelmingly the youth, excuse my language, they were like, the garden sucks, we like the battery better. It's just like, hey, fine, you know what, I appreciate the honesty. I'd rather have unapologetic, honesty from you than to put something out, spend money on printing for folks to not even do it. And I was like, cool, that's fine. You didn't even hurt my feelings because I was expecting some feedback, but it's kind of funny. It makes me chuckle sometimes when they tell me stuff. And especially since I gave the youth a survey form, they were able to, let me know anonymously, like, hey, what were your favorite things? What didn't you like? Like, just let me know what's up. So, battery metaphor, definitely, like, they really were in tune with that because we live in our information age. They're addicted, to their mobile devices. So it resonated very well that they were like, hey, you know what? I'm at 30% today and I don't know what else to tell you. Or you'll have someone that be like, okay, I started off at 10%, but towards, as the day progressed, I'm now at like 75%. And that was great because then that allowed them to share in the activity sharing portion for that activity. So I'm very grateful for that feedback.
Oh,
So,
Shayla, I love that. I love that they have a tool now just
mhm,
to be able to gauge what's true for them. So this is something that they
exactly.
can use, and the emoji as well, the emoji tool as well. Thanks for answering
Mhm.
that. Really appreciate
No
it.
problem, Nancy. Thank you.
Mm,
Was someone trying to say something? Was it Trey?
I think Saray may just be accidentally unmuted.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry. No,
okay.
no, no, no. I don't. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Good to hear that you're here, Shrey. She was at our last
Thank you.
facilitator support meeting. It
Yes.
is amazing. Hi. um, so Shayla, I know some of the questions we've been getting more consistently. Maybe I can throw some at you for the group too. If there's nothing else coming up for anyone here, and anyone still, feel free to jump in. Um, I know one of the questions that may be coming up is how do facilitators handle youth who become, visibly distressed or emotionally kind of overwhelmed during these sessions, since we're digging in to mental health, which is a big topic.
Absolutely. So just referring back to our one circle model, like we do not seek to exclude, the youth that, choose to be a part of, our circle experiences. And like I said, our youth are coming to us in all different forms of temperaments and emotions and things. Again, that's why I established the emoji um, chart as part of the check-in. Um, as far as being visibly distressed, like we definitely emphasize like safety with our youth. Like that's number one. I mentioned consent. We want you to, as I like to say in my sexual health journey, like eh, consent is overwhelmingly like paramount. Like we want you to enthusiastically want to be a part of it. And, we may see that in different ways, but we want to establish and emphasize safety and choice first to them, which is why, the shared group agreements are important. We want to give them a space to, if they're just sitting there, but they're not really mentally there right now, that's cool. If you want to opt out, you have that choice. If you need to step out into the hall or whatever your space is, as I like to say, if you need to, give yourself a moment, and just collect yourself or do whatever it is you got to do. If you need to go send that last little text, because part of our group agreements is we don't do cell phones unless it's called for in an activity, do what you got to do, but come back into the space because we want you to be here. So, there's that. One of the things I include in materials is like an all standard supplies list. And part of that supplies list is having like fidget toys or smooth stones or things that a youth can hold. Because sometimes there's comfort in holding something. I actually have this little activity ball that I don't know if anybody has like balls like these where you toss it and then there's like a little topic or something that you can answer within your group. It's a good icebreaker too. But holding something gives a youth comfort, they can center on that thing, which helps them center themselves. So I provide that in the all standard materials list for each facilitator to have at every session, because we really want to keep our youth in mind. And yeah, I just, yeah, those are just a few things to share.
Nice.
Excuse me.
Anyone else in the room coming up with questions? Anything coming up for you? Any needs? Any thoughts? I'll keep throwing questions out, Shayla. If not, I got them all day. All right. Well, Shay, do you want to address what training opportunities there are for people using this guide?
Yes, we have trainings all the time. We actually, you know what? As I am speaking, we have trainings happening that, like right now
We
as
do.
I speak. I think two of them happening concurrently. So every month we offer our Girls Circle trainings. We offer the Council for Boys and Young Men. Um, if it's not included in this chat, in the thank you email that I will send everyone that is attending, you will get a link to our training page where you can see all of our training. So not just Girls Circle and the council, but we have our safe spaces training as well. We have our mother-daughter, which we affectionately call MODA, our MODA trainings that we offer. So these are really great. And as someone that has been facilitating for years, as an educator, but I have also facilitated as a Girls Circle facilitator, but I didn't start off in the training. Like I highly recommend going to the training. I'm not just saying that because I work here, although I am kind of biased. But you are going to learn so much. And my coworker, Victoria, who is our director of training, she is amazing, and she has a wonderful team of trainers that do these sessions. So whether you want to do a virtual training with your group, or you want to do an in-person training where we can come to you, as long as you are the host. If you would like to host a training, like we have options for folks, and we can include that. That actually will be included in my email as well. If that's something you're interested in, you can do an interest form with us and we can follow up.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Welcome.
just want to add in on that. Just this week, our office manager said, we're so lucky at One Circle Foundation that we have a master in Victoria Mahand, who is literally a certified master trainer, that just so incredible at her work. And to be really clear for everyone, we don't provide individual trainings on specific activity guides because the training itself develops anyone to utilize the model. And so with this guide, as Shayla shared earlier, it's written out of the gender binary, so it can be used as Unity Circle where you're doing all gender groups. It can be in your girls circle, and it can work in your council for boys and young men. So whichever kind of program model you're working with, this will work in that setting. So coming to facilitator training is the way to go to get that initial support. And if training's not in the cards for one reason or another, in addition to getting Calm and Connected, if that's the only guide you're wanting to utilize, then we just recommend you buy a facilitator manual to couple with the activity guide, so that you've got kind of the ins and outs of what you need for effective facilitation skills work.
Skills.
And then the guide is your step-by-step curriculum.
Absolutely.
Shay.
Oh, I also want to mention or reiterate, if I hadn't mentioned it already, that for those not familiar with our sessions and our 7-step model within Unity Circle, that figure out how I want to say this. It is flexible. So we provide the foundation. I pretty much give you everything. Oh, I don't know how I forgot to mention this. One additional thing that I am proud of that I added to this guide, and that I will continue to implement as I update the other guides that were created before I came into this position, is the facilitator preparation section for each session. So I made sure to include very thorough steps, because this was actual feedback that I actually received in the surveys from the pilot testing, as well as the most previous facilitator support group meeting that I attended. And I was told, given positive feedback in terms of making sure that there were clear steps, because facilitators, they want to be prepared. As a facilitator myself, like I'm that type of person, got to plan ahead of time, got to make sure that everything, all my ducks are in a row, because once those youth arrive, there's not really a whole lot of time to kind of figure out whatever, what am I supposed to do? Let me go print this right quick. Let me make sure the emoji chart's ready and all this other stuff. Unless I have a co-facilitator that I can tag in and we, can work in sync. But a lot of times we're solo, so it helps to have those steps to prepare ahead of time. So I wanted to make sure that those things were thorough. And then for each activity, like when someone gets to activity number 1 or activity 2 or 3, you're going to see those same materials that I put in the general list on the first page of each session. You're going to see the specific materials required for each activity. So just in case you missed it, I put it there as well. So tried to be as thorough as possible with folks. But I also wanted to say, like, there's flexibility. I know a lot of times with a lot of different programs, we have to follow fidelity a lot of the time. And while that is the case, because we recommend that you definitely, follow our 7-step model, there is flexibility. So definitely adapt it however you need to your group. I included a resource at the end of the guide, of this activity guide, in our resources section on how to, turn one of these sessions into a 45-minute session if 45 minutes is all you have. So we encourage following those 7 steps, but maybe instead of all 3 activities, maybe you do 1. Okay. Maybe in your check-in, maybe you have to time it. So maybe you need to grab that little egg timer or have your phone ready with some kind of funny alarm or something. Because when kids get going, they get going. And before you know it, you didn't have a chance to do all the other things in your session. So there are adaptations that you can do and still have a worthwhile circle session.
Nice. A question I'm seeing that was submitted ahead of time. I'm not sure who, it was anonymously submitted. That's not directly about Common Connected, but it is about utilizing any of the curriculum. Was how to manage a group of different aged youth in a circle, and in this setting. So I know it's a little off the topic, but if you've got a quick response there or something you want to share. And then also we got another question in the chat about the shorter time frames. Maybe just to stay on topic, why don't you answer that one first, and then we'll come back to this. So the questions, so can you do longer than 45 minutes for a group? That's the question.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have the time, absolutely. The groups that I used to run, I was fortunate enough to have 2 hours with those girls that I used to work with. So I had to make sure to, spread the time out. Luckily, they had a little break to get a little snack, and then we were able to continue. But I know not everyone is as fortunate as I was, to have 2 hours. So you can do it as long as you want. You can also, I forgot to mention this, you can turn a session into 2 sessions if you want to. So I'm not going to be there in the back, Shayla, the author, talking about you should have did this in 1 session. Like, I'm not going to do that. One, I don't have the capacity to do that. But if you you're doing session 2 and you're like, look, 8 capacities, this is a lot to go over. Like, you know what, we can only do half of this activity now, give the kids a break to kind of absorb it, a little bit, and then we'll reconvene and finish it up the next session. You could very well do that as well. All right. So like I said, you have that flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as long as you do all the steps every time, you can break up that activity. And that's all laid
Yes.
out beautifully in the guide and that how to adapt to 45-minute sessions.
Mhm.
It's also on our blog for anyone to access at any time, and it's going in
Yeah.
the facilitator manuals as well. It's something we
Mhm.
hear more and more, especially in school settings, folks having short windows of time to use the programs. And our guides are written, our recommended time frame, and the intended time frame based on the content is 60 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's why there's this how to do it in a shorter time frame
Yeah.
piece, just to support that adaptation, because definitely doable,
Mhm.
but does require a little adjustment. Um, okay, so that other question was how to manage a group of different aged
Different ages.
youth.
Okay. So typically, I had to be mindful of my wording. Typically, it would, it's best if you are able to manage like your groups like in like small age ranges, because if you have, and I'm speaking from personal experience, so if you have a group that's coming in and the age range is 10 or 11 to 16, 17, someone's going to suffer, like just developmentally, like it's going to get lost in the sauce, as I like to say. Like someone's just going to be out there and they're just going to be like, okay, whatever, I'm just here, but I'm not really, involved. I'm not integrating myself because, she's over there with that group or whatever. So if there's a way that you can separate them by age and adapt the sessions accordingly, this is where having a co-facilitator would be awesome. I know sometimes that's not always the case. There's also tools within the facilitator manual that Maria mentioned. So again, if you can't attend one of our wonderful trainings and hear it firsthand from one of the trainers, then I always say refer to the manual. There's a wonderful section on best practices of how to handle that, because that is a common thing that comes up. But I also want to put it out to folks in this space. Is there anyone who is currently a facilitator who or has been a facilitator and has done Girls Circle, Unity Circle, Boys Council, and has been met with this particular circumstance? And if so, what did you do? So I'm opening it up to folks here. Didn't think I put you on the spot.
I do. Hi everyone.
Hi.
I facilitate an activity that have the age gap is very different. It's like from 10 to 20 something. It's very hard, and also the session that I facilitate is very short. It's only 30 minutes. Usually I pick only one activity from the girls circle session and facilitate it within those time period that I have. But I have to say it's very different since the age gap is, very different. The younger one seems to be very quiet, and sometimes some topic they have an idea to discuss, and it seems to be open to everyone, but some topics they just don't have a lot of idea. But so we just have to go with it, and we understand that because of the age gaps, and we just have to go with it. But they still try their best to participate in that session.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, there's nothing better than hearing like a real like account of like being in the trenches and like being faced with that type of scenario. So I appreciate you saying that. And like I said, that happened to me, but with a different guide. I was doing mind, body, spirit, and I had that age, not to 21 years of age, you mentioned, Shrey, but I definitely had the age range, and I did all the steps, I did everything, but I added something extra. And this was something that I just did. I'm not saying everybody has to do it, but I did an activity, like a closing activity that brought all of them together, where from Mind, Body, Spirit, it was the inner critic versus your inner champion activity. And I had them make their own crowns. Oh, they were all over it. Like you remember the Burger King crowns that we used to get when we get the Happy Meals? They would give you in the drive-through or whatever. Um, I basically bought those crowns, and I bought a bunch of like rhinestone stickers and markers and glitter pens and stuff. And it didn't matter if they were 10 or 18. They were like, oh, I'm a queen today. I'm a princess. Let me make my crowns. And I was like, okay, there you go. Inner champion, done. Sometimes you have to get creative as a facilitator, to help foster that connection. And during that time, they were all connected regardless of age. So while they might have been tuned out during certain aspects of, the activity and the session, like I was able to bring them together for that time. So just an example I like to provide folks. Anybody else? No pressure.
I think that that could be a real opportunity. I haven't had the experience, but I'm just thinking in discussions to have, each side kind of give their point of view and then bring it back to the other side. Like if it was a younger girl giving their point of view, going to the older ones, do
Mhm.
you remember at that stage in your life, or
Absolutely.
using the older girls and saying this is what you have to look forward to? Like I think you could bring them together that way.
Yeah. They could be your little mini facilitators for the day because
Yeah.
they could be like,
Mhm.
hey, I remember when I was your age. And if I could tell my younger self something,
Mhm.
this is what I would want you to know, kind of thing. And you'd be surprised how many vocal ones
Mhm.
speak up.
The other thing too is I think it would be really good to encourage when they're doing the activities for them to mix, because I could see them just kind of
Mhm.
separating on their own and like, no, I want,
Oh,
a few people over here and a few people over there, not telling them where they have to be, but try and get them at least mixing so you don't have that divide.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And
it's
yeah.
happened in my group. It's like when close friends they attend, they like to sit next to each other and they have like this chit chat, and I like to separate them because otherwise, I
Hmm.
when they sit close to their friend, they seems to be more comfortable and express more. But when you try to separate them to be, just build a relationship or connection with other people, they seems to kind of a bit scared, but they still try their best. But I
Hmm.
want them to get used to that, sometimes we have to be with somebody that we have no idea at all. So get used to that. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Hmm. And again, this is part of, the facilitation skills. It may involve like randomly splitting them up into pairs or trios or groups. And doing things like that, and maybe assigning someone different to do the opening ritual and the closing. There's a lot of different things that you can do, and again, that's all built into like the facilitation skills portion of the manual. So because they can get clicky, I understand. It gets so clicky. I'm like,
Well,
what are you
and
doing?
oh, Patrina's here. I was just going to say quickly that, we do have a facilitator support meeting that's monthly. Some of you,
Mhm.
Patrina comes to these. We've seen her there, and a couple other folks, Ray as well. And so that is a very great resource. Victoria Mahan, the director of training we were talking about, manages those and leads those. And so it's a great opportunity for anyone facilitating our programs to come in. It's free, again, once a month. I'll put the link in the chat to come in and talk about any of these kinds of scenarios coming up
Mhm.
where you're having issues and could use some support to get that from both Victoria and a community of folks doing the work.
Absolutely.
Patrina, your hand is up.
Hello, and I'm so sorry. I've actually been here, but I've been on my phone trying to reboot my computer this
Oh,
whole time. I'm
oh
like,
no.
it's not working. But I did want to talk about the age group. I have a group that I'm starting next month, and the contract was for 10 to 21. And they also wanted open enrollment. And I was like, oh my God, these are like the worst things that could happen. And so what I did say to them is, okay, we can do open enrollment as long as we can have an orientation time ahead of time, let people know what's going on, what to expect. But to accommodate the 10 to 21, I'm splitting the group into 2 nights. So 10 to 15, 16 to
Mhm.
21. And even that I thought was too big of a group. So when we have our breakout groups, we will go do, I don't know, 10 to 12, 13 to 15. So try to get it down to a 2 year gap. And then come back together and have a conversation about, okay, this is what group A and group one came up with, and just trying to make it work because, that's what
Yeah.
they said they wanted. And I was like, this is awful. You cannot put this large of an age span together, but we're going to make it happen. And so I haven't done it yet, so I don't know in practice if it actually works. But in theory, in my head, it sounds like a really good idea.
It does.
Is it just yourself facilitating, or do you have a
I
co-facilitator?
do have a co-facilitator who's supposed to be in training today, but she had a death in her family last night, so she's a little
Oh,
distracted.
I'm sorry.
A little distracted. So I was like, you can always make it up next month if you need to. Take time for you, do what you need to
Absolutely.
do. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, no, don't go into this alone, especially with such a large group. Well, I don't know if it's a large group, but such a large age group, and we're going to have to be in two
Absolutely.
different rooms. Definitely need as many hands on deck as I can get.
Absolutely. It can get very overstimulating. I know what that's like.
So thank you for all of these opportunities, because every time I sign
Absolutely.
on, every time I go to a training, there's a tidbit that you get, and it's like, file that one away. That's going to be really helpful
Mhm.
when the scenario presents itself. So hopefully we can get around to using this new guide at some point.
Great. That would be fun.
Thank you.
And then I can reach out and get feedback from folks and find out what's going on.
Yes, I know. If there's anyone here that's already using it or plans to, please reach out. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and put this in the chat. Um, the link again for the guide, and that link is to download the free session or purchase the guide.
Yes.
Both Shayla's and my email addresses, which you can reach out to either of us. If you want support just purchasing a guide or with training, you can reach out to info@onecirclefoundation.org or call us. And I also include the link for that to get into the facilitator support meetings as well, in case anyone's interested in that. And
Also, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. I was gonna wrap it up in case there are other questions, but you go.
I was just going to offer myself as support in terms of just if outside of, yes, the focus has been calm and connected, but if anyone would like to know what I did when I was facilitating a girls circle, namely mind, body, spirit. I keep mentioning that one. That was my favorite. That was my first one, the first guide that I used in my girls circle group. There were a few things I did in terms of like PowerPoints and images and what I did for the opening and closing rituals. So if folks I can definitely share those PowerPoints. I have them stored somewhere in my Google Drive. Uh, I'm willing, to share tools because I mean, that's what it's all about is, sharing tips and tricks so that folks can be successful and we have wonderful circle groups and hopefully get to hear about them. So,
Any other questions coming up for folks? Patrina. Yes.
I just remembered this. So, as part of this grant, it's like, you're going to make me do that. I want something out of it too. And so I did write in there that I could buy the whole curriculum. And I'm going to say girls circle because we're only working with girls. So I was going to ask the question, is this new one included in the bulk thing? And then I realized, oh, wait, it's not girls circle, right? It's unity. So that's something different, but
You want it? You want to take it? Either way.
I was like, but
It is
so
in the
it,
girls circle set. Yes.
yes,
let's work it
yeah,
in there.
it is in the girls circle set. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for
The
this month's
last
reimbursement so I can buy it next month.
Nice. That's wonderful. I'm so glad you can get the whole thing. Yeah, girl,
Yeah.
the last three activity guides from Unity Circle, which is this
Mhm.
Calm and Connected, last year's Voice and Choice, and the year
Mhm.
before All Together Rising.
Together Rising.
All three of those technically are in the Unity Circle house of curriculum,
Yes.
but all
Yes.
three of them were written just out of the binary. They are absolutely usable and applicable in Girls Circle, Unity
Okay.
Circle, or the
Okay.
Council for Boys and Young Men. So we did include
Wonderful.
them in those spaces.
Wonderful.
And you know
Can't
what
wait.
I know. You know what I was going to say? When I used to facilitate, I had access, I was facilitating while on staff at the organization still a lot. And so I had access to the entire One Circle set. And my personal favorite way to use the guides when you have the gift of having everything available is I would pick a guide. My go-to is Paths to the Future. That's kind of my favorite guide.
Okay.
And it has the most kind of variety in it
Okay.
and of sessions. And I'd always start with the first couple. And then as I'd start to get to know the youth in the circle and start hearing what's going on in their lives and the different things happening, I would like ditch the guide and I'd go grab sessions from whatever other guide
Right.
and plug
Right.
those in. And that is that, all of these guides work very well cover to cover, and they're a beautiful experience and intended to be that way. And there will be good things that anyone would get out of them. But when you have access to everything, you get that option to kind of grab whatever you want. And then, and just have your opening and closing sessions. But as long as you're doing the 6 steps every time, or for Girl Circle, 7 steps otherwise,
Right.
you're sticking to the fidelity of the model, and it's just about other activities and themes. And so, it's a gift to be able to operate that way. And I, having been in a girls' circle as a kid, also, you have no idea, like you've no clue. She didn't. My facilitator was one of our founders, and she didn't like open a guide and go session by session. She was like using whatever that existed at the time, and had no idea there was a theme or overarching theme.
Yes.
It was just
Yes.
reactionary. So.
Right.
It's great.
And that's exactly what I want to get to, is to the point where I know what's in each of them enough that it's like there's a resource here. Let me pull that out because that's where we are. Not necessarily we're on page 20 and that's what we're going to do next week.
Mhm.
This one is more appropriate. So that's why my hope is
Exactly.
not my hope. I am going to get them all. I'm hoping they don't take them away from me at the end of the grant.
Oh my God, no.
Well, they said, there's this one group that orders 20 laptops every year, and then they make them turn them in, and then they distribute the laptops to other organizations. But I'm like, you can't take my curriculum. You cannot take my curriculum. But either way, I will have them for a few months, if anything. So I'm excited. I can't wait to get it. Like I said, as soon as my February reimbursement gets here, then I can order the next stuff. So thank you all for all of the work that you do. I've been really impressed by Girl Circle. So let me just say this. I went to a virtual conference, maybe 3 years ago. And because I showed up, signed up, whatever, I won a curriculum. And so someone reached out and said, which one do you want? And I was like, well, I work with women. And I picked something from the women's group. And they actually sent me relationships with peers. And I thought, well, I don't work with youth. So it sat on my shelf for, I don't know how long, 3 years, maybe 4 years. And then this opportunity came up and I was like, I have the curriculum already. and read it from cover to cover, made sure I was prepared for the group that ultimately didn't happen. But that's when I was like, you guys know your stuff. Right. So everything that I've learned over 15 years of working with women in the prison system and how we run our groups and making sure we hit on those same things each week. Topic may change, but the way that we do it, just that consistency and all of it. I love it all. And so that's why I can't wait to get my hands on the rest of it. And, I think Shayla said at some point she nerds out on certain things. I nerd out on good curriculum. Anything that's trauma informed. I have to say my staff member who is in training this week, she texted me yesterday. She says, I love it. And there was like a lot of O's and a lot of V's. Like she was loving the training. So she didn't know what she was getting herself into, but yeah, good stuff. You all are doing an amazing job. And I love being a part of the Girls Circle family. And if you didn't consider me family, I've just made myself family, just so you know.
Hey.
It's fine.
Yeah,
so thank you all. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, Patrina, too, I want to share with your comment about, how you'll get familiar with all of the topics and themes. I just want to make sure you know that pretty recently we added into the curriculum store a search bar. And so you can search any word. So if you're like, I don't know, alcohol use, you can type that in the search bar. And what it'll do is it'll pull up any activity guide that has that word in the outline. So then you can see in what sessions, because if you're going to have the whole set, then you're like, okay, great. That's the one that I can pull this out of. So that's, I think, more than it being helpful for the store, it's like helpful for facilitators to see, I just need something on this topic. So let me just go search this on any word. So hopefully that's helpful.
It just makes navigation easier because it's over 260 sessions total. Like, who has that kind of time? I mean, I do because that's my job. But yeah, that toolbar definitely, that search bar helps.
Well, we're 2 minutes over time. Shayla, I know we should close officially here. I know you were willing to stay on if anyone else did have questions. Yes. Which is amazing. We've got in the chat resources. Shayla will reach out to everyone after via email with some other just connection opportunities. And we will at some point share some or all of the video from this as well. And we want to thank you all for being here and for doing this work and showing up for youth and showing up for each other. And stay in touch. It is a family. It is very much, we are all about relationships. We live and breathe this work of healthy connection as adults. And thank you for everything you do. So,
Thanks, everyone.
thank you.